Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of my Terraria Master Mode Summoner 100 Days series. Before we get into the video, I'd like to go over a few things. First off, if you have not watched the first video, I highly recommend you go and watch it, as there's a lot of stuff I explained in the first one that I'll most likely be skipping over in this video, so to better understand everything, please go and watch the first video. I promise you'll enjoy it. Second, I've gotten some very good feedback on the previous video, so there's definitely going to be some structural and tonal differences in this one. I hope that doesn't bother you. It's just natural with the learning process I'm going through with making these videos. Also, if you would like the video, please leave a like. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe, as it lets me know that people want to see more of this, as well as go join the Discord down below as I post updates about the videos that I'm working on, as well as talk about future video ideas, and maybe you can even leave me some suggestions on what you'd like to see. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, on days 50 to 51, after opening the treasure bag and not getting what I wanted, I had to fight Queen Slime a few more times in hopes of finally finding my next summon, the Blade Staff. Now, at first glance, the Blade Staff might seem weak. I mean, look at the stats. However, this is a very strong summon and will play an important role in the next boss fight. More on that in a bit. You see, even though the Blade Staff has low base damage, it actually can put out some very high DPS. This is because its attack speed combined with its high armor penetration. If we can combine this with the shark tooth necklaces we got last time, well, it can absolutely wreck some bosses. On days 52 to 53, I ended up doing some preparation for the next boss we have to fight. Because now that we have the Blade Staff, I had a fun idea. You see, there's a meme in the Terraria community about the order you can fight bosses in hard mode. You see, now that I've beaten Queen Slime, the next bosses I am meant to fight are the mech bosses, which are mechanical, harder versions of easy mode bosses such as the Eye of Cthulhu and Skeletron. Almost every boss you are meant to fight after them actually require you to beat each mech boss first before you can even try to fight them. But, as you may have noticed, I said almost all. There is one boss we can take on right now that we are not technically meant to fight in terms of the order of progression. So to get there, we have to head to the underground mushroom biome. In the underground mushroom biome, there's something called a truffle worm that spawns here. I ended up spending most of my days, 52 and 53, down here trying to find this truffle worm. Later on than the night of day 53, a blood moon spawned, which was really lucky because I was planning on spawning one anyway. This is really important for the summoner, as one of the best summons in the game comes from fishing in the blood moon, dropped by an enemy called the Dread Nautilus. This is probably one of the hardest enemies to fight, especially if you're trying to take it on honestly as a summoner. Luckily, we can cheese it. Basically, with this box I have set up, honey, campfire, heart lantern, give me extra health regen, and the box will protect me from most of its attacks. On day 54, I finally felt ready to take on that optional boss I was referring to earlier, known as Duke Fishron. Duke Fishron isn't even technically meant to be taking on at this point in the game, as his stats are much higher than any boss you could take on at this point. However, you can technically fight him as soon as you enter hard mode, and since there is no technical time limit to the boss fight, you can use almost any weapon to take him down, just as long as you have enough skill to be able to dodge his fast attacks. Taking on Duke Fishron at this point is definitely no easy feat, as your mobility is still quite low compared to how high it's intended to be at the point in the game you would fight him normally. Now, even though at this point your mobility is quite low, as long as you can concentrate most of your accessories towards mobility, such as getting wings, using amphibian boots or the frog legs, and double jump bottles and a balloon for increased speed and maneuverability in the air, this can give you the edge you need in order to dodge his faster attacks, especially in his later phases. You might notice near the end of the fight that I actually swapped the weapons I'm using. This is because in his last phase, most of the time he will be invincible and you can only hit him at small points during his attacks. So I switched to the Blade Staff and the Cool Whip, as the Cool Whip does more damage per hit and the Blade Staff is faster, so it'll be able to catch up to him in the few moments that you can hit him. When we return to spawn, I decide to open up the treasure bag, and we get quite lucky by both receiving the Tempest Staff, which is the summon that Duke Fishron drops, it being one of the highest base damage summon weapons in the game and my personal favorite weapon. And we also get a very rare drop from hard mode bosses, which is a developer set. These always come with a vanity armor as well as a set of wings. These wings are definitely an upgrade to what we have right now. From days 55 to 57, I basically spent time doing lots of different types of farming. I started off by farming both Souls of Night and Souls of Light for the mech boss summons we need to craft. I also went to the beach in order to farm for pirate maps. Now, I did have a corrupted beach, which was nice as the corruption increases the spawn rates, and any enemy you kill at the beach can drop a pirate map. I also ended up killing King Slime many times to farm some money and also potentially find the slime staff. At some point, I attempted to take on the Destroyer and lost, and spent the rest of this time farming the pirate invasion with the pirate maps that I got. Days 58 through 59 were pretty simple. I basically spent the entirety of both of these days expanding the world bridge and prep for my mech boss fights coming up. On day 60, I decided to take on what I consider to be the easiest of the three mech bosses, Skeletron Prime. Now, unlike Skeletron in easy mode, once you remove the hands from Skeletron Prime, he basically becomes a spinning head who just chases you at a pretty slow speed compared to how fast you can go at this point. So my recommendation is to just focus on the hands as much as possible, with focusing on the ones that shoot projectiles first. Now that I finally had a mech boss beat on days 61 to 62, I spent working on building some homes throughout the world. I started off with a home near spawn outside of the hollowed biome so I could purchase green solution from the steampunker so that I can get rid of the hollowed invading on my spawn. I also ended up picking a spot to construct an above ground mushroom biome in order to find the mushroom NPC to get him to move in. On the night of day 63, I took on the twins. Now, depending on who you ask, this could either be the easiest or the hardest mech boss. I consider them to be fairly easy, as long as you have enough mobility, you can very easily dodge their attacks. However, the timing can sometimes be finicky, as the different speeds of their projectiles can sometimes catch you up. My best recommendation is to focus on Spasmatism the whole time, as his Cursed Flame debuff can really do a lot of damage to you, and once you remove him, focusing on Retinizer becomes really easy, as even when Retinizer becomes enraged, you can just circle around him the whole time and avoid his attacks almost entirely. On the night of day 64, I finally got my rematch with the Destroyer of Worlds. This is, in my opinion, probably the hardest of the 3 mech bosses for the summoners. When the Destroyer is charging at you, if you are hit by its head, it deals massive damage and could potentially kill you instantly. As he is weakened, he spawns many minions, which help surround you and trap you within the lasers he shoots at you. Your best focus is to stay high above the ground as much as possible, making it difficult for him to get to you, and making sure you collect the hearts that the minions drop, as they help you stay healthy throughout the fight. Days 65 through 67 were more days full of farming. I ended up getting really lucky in both the snow biome and the sand biome, as farming for these keys was relatively quick compared to how long it can take. We need these keys as their respective chests in the dungeon both contain summoner items, which we will want for sure. I also ended up spending a little bit of the rest of day 67 farming for the pirate staff from the pirate invasion as well. On days 68 through 69, my goal was to complete the prep for fighting our next boss, Plantera. I started off by creating a graveyard near the Dryad by placing enough tombstones for my deaths throughout the run around her house. If the Dryad is located in a graveyard biome, she will sell you seeds from the evil that your world does not have. So because my world was a Crimson world, she sold me corruption seeds. I used the corruption seeds in order to create a corruption biome near a sky lake in order to fish up Evankoi, which allow me to create a Wrath Potion. The Wrath Potion gives you a 10% increase in damage overall, so it is very useful. I spent the rest of these times throughout these days exploring the jungle for Plantera bulbs in order to spawn the boss, as well as creating an arena and looking for life fruit. After locating a Plantera bulb near the entrance of my arena, on day 70, we took on the beast of the jungle herself, Plantera. Plantera is a relatively slow-moving boss compared to most of the other bosses we have faced so far, so I decided to use the Tempest Staff for maximizing damage. Your best bet against Plantera is to create a very wide and open arena in order to avoid her bouncing projectiles she spawns, and to circle around her in order to avoid the projectiles that she shoots out of her mouth. After getting down to about half health, Plantera will enrage, and she'll become a little bit faster and spawn a bunch of extra minions around her. Your best bet is to keep your distance and try to stay away from these minions as much as possible, as they can hit you into Plantera and cause massive damage. On days 71 through 75, I spent a lot of time in the dungeon gathering many of the different items I needed. First off was the Morning Star, which is the next whip we can get. The Morning Star is very important because it actually unlocks a new opportunity for damage potential. Any target hit by the Morning Star gains a 5% chance for minions to do critical hits, greatly increasing our damage. Next was also items like the Tabby and the Black Belt, as these can all be added together into the Master Ninja gear, which will greatly increase our dash and also allows us to dodge hits sometimes. On day 76, I head to the Jungle Temple now that I have the key from Plantera. One thing that I can say for certain is that when exploring the Jungle Temple, you absolutely want an item known as the Grand Design. The Grand Design lets you see the pathing of all traps and wires throughout your screen and allows you to cut them, neutralizing the traps from anywhere on your screen as long as you can see them. This helps greatly when exploring the Jungle Temple, as it's full of traps that could kill you very quickly. When you finally reach the end room where you are meant to fight the golem, I noticed that it was strangely small. I was under the assumption that part of the 1.4 update was to prevent small rooms like this. Well, whatever. We'll deal with this later. On day 77, I explored the jungle more to find the rest of the life fruit I need to get to 500 health. On day 78, I spent some time farming the pirate invasion in hopes of finally finding the pirate staff. And then later on, I spent some time farming the Old One's army for defender medals, as I might need a backup plan for the golem fight. On days 79 through 80, I spend most of the time working on making a simple arena for the holiday events like the Pumpkin Moon and the Frost Moon, as we will need to be fighting these later. On day 81, I went to go and try fighting the golem a few times. However, it was basically a lost cause because it was too hard to avoid the attacks in such a small arena. So I decided a change of plan was necessary. On days 82 to 83, I decided to farm some bosses. I wanted to go and fight Duke Fishron a few more times, as I still needed to get one of the things that he drops, which is his wings. These wings are some of the best wings in the game, and they are a huge upgrade if you can get them early on when we fought Duke Fishron earlier, as they're basically one of the best wings in the game. On days 84 through 87, I spent each night farming the Pumpkin Moon. The Pumpkin Moon has so many drops that are important for the summoner, including Spooky Wood, which is used to craft spooky armor, one of the best armors for summoners in the game. The Dark Harvest, which is another whip for the summoners to use, very high base damage and very long range. The Raven Staff, which is one of the highest base damage summons in the game. And finally, but most importantly, the Necromantic Scroll, which grants an extra minion summon and also increases minion damage. On day 89, I was finally ready to take on the Golem, with a different strategy than last time. I decided to use an armor set known as the Squire Armor. This is an armor you can obtain from the Tavern Keep after farming enough Defender medals from the Old One's Army event. This armor is different from the armors that we had before, as it's a sentry-based armor set, allowing more sentries to be placed. The most important bonus from this armor, however, is the whopping 56 total defense, which is 18 more than the best summon armor in the game, and also provides a great increase in health regen. This armor being based around sentries obviously makes it bad against bosses that move a lot. However, with the Golem not moving as much, as well as having a very small room, this really isn't a problem. Days 90 to 91, I spent farming the Solar Eclipse for the Deadly Spear Staff, as it was the next minion I wanted to get in order to collect all of them. I spent the night of day 92 farming for the next item that we needed, the Prismatic Lacewing. The Prismatic Lacewing spawns in the Hallowed biome at night between 7:30 p.m. and 12 a.m. I recommend getting there before 7:30 so that you can maximize your time there at night as much as possible. We need the Prismatic Lacewing because it spawns the next boss we want to take on, the Empress of Light. On day 93, I tried to take on the Martian invasion. However, I clearly wasn't ready, as my mobility was too low to take on the Martian saucers, and I died many times just trying to take on one full invasion. On the night of day 94, we were ready to take on our first attempt at the Empress of Light. For this fight, I switched back to using Spooky Armor instead of the Squire Armor, as we were going to need as much damage as possible in order to complete this in the night. We also used the Sanguine Bat Staff, as it is important to have a summon that can keep up with you during this fight, given how much you're going to need to move around to avoid the Empress's many attacks. And the Sanguine Bat Staff returns to you after every attack, so it is always next to you and is ready to attack the Empress when she gets in range. The Empress has some amazing drops, the first of which being the Kaleidoscope, which is the best whip in the entire game, and a very good weapon overall. As well as the Soaring Insignia in Expert Mode and above, which grants infinite flight and a flying speed increase. Day 95 was a very simple day. I just spent the day farming for both money and the pirate staff. On day 96, I explored the jungle for the rest of the life route I needed to get to 500 health. From days 97 to 99, I spent the entire time farming the alien invasions. The Martian invasion is no joke and is probably one of the hardest invasions to take on in the game. You definitely want to be ready for it with as many good items as possible. The soaring insignia from the Empress of Light, which gives you infinite flight, can become very helpful, especially when taking on the Martian saucers. On the ceremonious day 100, I spent the day prepping for day 101, which was going to be the most important day in this whole run. We will be rematching the Empress of Light, but with a twist. You see, when summoned in the day, the Empress of Light enters into an enraged mode in which all of her attacks will kill you instantly. So we are going to need to open the airways a bit by removing some of these floating islands. Now, you're probably noticing that this playthrough is going past 100 days, and that is very much on purpose. I didn't want to rush things and eliminate farming or skip days when I was recording or in this script to make it seem like this went quicker than possible. Can this be completed in 100 days? Probably, but I think Terraria is a game in which oftentimes you need to take time to prepare for things. So we're going to go a little bit above 100 days. On day 101, we were finally ready to take on the Daytime Empress of Light. This is without a doubt the hardest fight in the game by far, and doing a guide on it right here would not be practical as it is too much to explain. If you want to see a guide for this fight with any and all of the classes, let me know down below, as I would be happy to make videos on that. But, without further ado, enjoy the fight. The reward for defeating the Empress of Light in the daytime is an item known as the Terraria, which is the strongest summon weapon in the game. And it just looks freaking cool on top of that. After beating the Daytime Empress of Light, I spent the rest of day 101 doing a DPS showcase for the Terraria and how amazing it could be. On day 102, using my newly attained gear from the Daytime Empress, I took on the Pumpkin Moon again in order to reach the final round of 15 and fully complete the challenge of the Pumpkin Moon. On day 103, I decided to take on the final challenge of the Old One's army, in which you face every single boss throughout the different waves, as well as the final boss, known as Betsy. On the night of day 104, I attempted to take on the Frost Moon. However, at this point, it was still way too difficult for me to complete, as the Frost Moon contains 20 rounds as compared to the 15 rounds of the Pumpkin Moon. So I decided to take a break from it and come back to it later when we have the best possible items we could have. I spent the entirety of day 105 farming the Old One's army in order to be able to obtain the Valhalla Knight armor, which is a direct upgrade to the Squire armor earlier. It has the highest defense possible that a summoner can have in the game, as well as retaining the life regen bonus that the Squire armor has as well. This is going to be very useful for the events coming up, as we're going to need as much defense and survivability as possible. On day 106, it was finally time to take on the Lunatic Cultist and start the lunar events. These events are no joke and have some of the most frustrating enemies in the game, so I made use of the Valhalla Knight armor for as much survivability as possible. Sadly, after taking out all of the lunar pillars finally, I was not able to beat the Moon Lord on our first try. On day 107, I used the materials that we had gathered from the lunar pillars in order to craft a summoning sigil for the Moon Lord in order for a rematch. The Moon Lord is an extremely hard boss, especially for the summoner, and especially in Master Mode. He does insane amounts of damage, and the summoner is just left with not very much defense, even from very high defense armors like the Valhalla Knight armor. Your best bet is to keep as much distance from Moon Lord as possible, and a few times I even run away from him, forcing to teleport back to me so that I can get a little downtime in between his attacks in order to heal. You want to take out each of his eyes around the same time so that you can kill the heart as quickly as possible without having to deal with all of the different projectiles being shot at you. So, with that out of the way, enjoy the fight. And so, with the defeat of the Moon Lord, we have finally been able to conquer every boss in Terraria Master Mode as a summoner. Or, wait, hold up. That's not right. Am I missing something? Oh, right. After defeating the Moon Lord a few more times, I acquired the Stardust armor and decided to finally beat the Frost Moon in order to finally beat all of the bosses in Terraria Master Mode and finally complete the challenge. At this point, I would like to provide a retrospective on the Summoner class in Terraria, especially in Master Mode, the highest difficulty we have access to so far. Summoner is definitely a very difficult class to play in Terraria. The defenses are so low for this class, and it's honestly laughable most of the time. So, in most situations, you're better off with aiming for no-hit strategies for most of the bosses throughout the game. However, the DPS capabilities are definitely insane at certain points of the game, especially with the addition of whips from Journey's End. Let me know down below if you want to see a whips-only playthrough, as that's something I've sort of been interested since Journey's End was released. Now, you might be asking the question, should I take on this challenge? And my answer to that is to probably say Maybe. It really depends. Summoner is a really difficult class and also a very polarizing class. People either absolutely hate it or absolutely love it. So, my recommendation is, if you've never played Summoner before, probably try easier difficulties to get used to the class. However, in my opinion, with the addition of whips and Journey's End, it's made the class a lot more engaging and just a lot more fun in general. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do plan on doing more 100-day series for the other classes eventually. However, the next video I'm working on is actually going to be a bit different, and if you want to learn more about that, I may or may not be talking about it in the Discord in the coming days. If you want to learn more about the videos that I'm working on, please go ahead in the description and join the Discord, as I'm very active there talking to people in the community. If you liked the video, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. This helps me so much, and it really makes me know that you guys want to see more of these, and it definitely motivates me to work a lot harder on these as well, I will say that. Without further ado, I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful day. I love you all very much. See you next time.